Do you think this war is the beginning of the end of, Donald Trump?
Of course it's the end. Of course.
Tucker Carlson, who campaigned for Donald Trump, spoke at the Republican National Convention and became one of the most influential voices in the MAGA movement, is now saying that Trump's presidency is effectively finished and that MAGA itself has reached the end of the road. Those are some remarkable comments coming from someone who helped build that movement. Carlson made these statements during an interview with Sky News, so let's watch what he had to say together.
Our system is broken in the most basic sense. People who tell the truth are punished. People who lie and kill are rewarded.
I wonder, Tucker, where this leaves the future of the MAGA movement. I mean,
the future of the MAGA. Well, that's over. There's no future of the MAGA movement. Obviously, we're done.
This war caused the end.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, what is the MAGA movement? Trump has defined it as whatever he wants. Well, that's not a movement. That's a tick. That's a preference. It's like, what do I feel like having for breakfast this morning? Well, today it's, the pancake movement. It'll be Eggs Benedict movement tomorrow. Like, it's not a movement. It's just like it's a desire.
But you believed in it.
Well, I never understood what it was. No, I never believed in MAGA. I believe in making America great again. I certainly believe in its literal definition, but its operational definition was never clear. What I believe in is putting your country first. If you're leading your country, of course, its concerns are at the top of your list of concerns, in the same way that your children's concerns are more important, your children's needs are more important to you as a parent than your neighbor's kids' needs and concerns. You're the parent. That's nature. Again, that's just natural. There's nothing crazy or fascistic about that. In fact, any other form of government is crazy and fascistic. Every other form of government is tyranny. That's the only legitimate form of government where the leaders put, not to the exclusion of everyone else's concerns, like you don't have to hate your neighbor's kids to love your own. You can love all kids. But if it comes down to it, you put your kids first because you're their parent. And that same worldview has to be the way the U.S. government operates in order to be legitimate. And that's what America First means. And so I will never stop believing that. I think every other American believes that too. The phrase America First scares people because it's like Nazi or something, but like in real life, there's no other way to run a government. And I still believe that. And this war was the most obvious betrayal of that. We didn't go to war to protect our own interests. We went to war to serve Israel's interests. They've said that out loud. So this is not a conspiracy theory. That's contemptible. That's wrong.
So anytime you start thinking, maybe Tucker Carlson actually has a point here, I don't usually agree with him, but what he's saying makes sense, he suddenly follows it up with something completely outrageous. That's exactly what happens next. So let's keep watching and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Some good people there for sure, some smart, well-meaning people, but there weren't a ton of people who were willing to march in there and say, this is nuts, man. This is nuts. And you're being sold a story that's not true. And not hate against Israel. Like, I understand they've got a different perspective from ours. They have different goals from ours because they're a different country. But if you follow this path, you will be entrapped. This is a trap. I did tell him that. He didn't like it at all. But it was true. And it wasn't just true. It was obviously true.
Well, the person who did make the case was Benjamin Netanyahu. And he, advocated for this. But he hasn't advocated just to Donald Trump for 25 years. For 30 years, he's been advocating to president after president. I mean, why Trump?
You're absolutely right. The core premise of your question is undeniable. Many presidents have faced this pressure. Only Trump caved. That's just a fact. So as I said, I don't know why. There are, famous...
he wasn't hypnotized. He just swallowed it.
He may have been hypnotized. That's real. People are absolutely hypnotized. I know a lot of people have been hypnotized. I have been hypnotized.
This is the version of Tucker Carlson that reminds you why it's so hard to take him seriously. Just when you start thinking maybe he's actually making a good point, he turns around and says something completely ridiculous like this. I'll come back to it a little later because I think it's all connected to Tucker Carlson's strategy for what comes after the MAGA era.
Of course, people are hypnotized all the time.
But on an issue
like this. What do you think love is?
But on an issue like this?
Of course. We're all hypnotized from time to time. Words have power. Words change reality.
But this is a president who...
We hypnotize ourselves all the time.
But you supported him. So many likes.
Well, I didn't just support him. I campaigned for him.
I mean, I was, by the way, and we'll talk about this, I was at the RNC when you spoke.
No way.
I was. And you spoke. And, you were convincing and compelling in
I had
your
no notes.
arguments.
I meant
it. But to come out, to campaign for him, to support him in the way that you did, and then for him to campaign on a no war, no forever wars, and for it to end up like this.
No one was as shocked as I was.
Yeah.
So my first of all, I would just say is I try to force myself to say always, I was wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of other things, including the Iraq War. So I am capable of being not just wrong, but very embarrassingly wrong. So that's just a fact. Why was I wrong? It's not like I didn't know Trump had flaws. I know Trump intimately. I know Trump really, really well. And I've always liked him, but I know what he's like. And so I was eyes wide open in some ways. But my calculation was, and it seemed obvious, that from my perspective, what the country needs is a choice. And the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are identical in their core assumptions about the economy and foreign policy, which is what matters. And I thought Trump was an option.
Are you talking to Trump at the moment?
No.
You haven't spoken to him since?
I have not. February 28th. I spoke to him the 27th. I haven't talked to him since. I don't hate him. I feel sorry for him. What he did is a catastrophe. He knew it would be. He did it anyway.
I think this is going to become the new strategy for MAGA commentators like Tucker Carlson. Carlson even says he feels sorry for Donald Trump because, according to him, Trump was somehow hypnotized. My prediction is that this will be the excuse they keep using from now on. They'll argue that Donald Trump had good intentions, that he truly wanted to do what was best for the American people, but somehow he was manipulated. They'll claim he couldn't overcome the deep state, Benjamin Netanyahu, or all of these powerful forces working against him. The message will be that even someone as powerful as Donald Trump couldn't stop it. I believe that's the path Tucker Carlson is taking because it's a way for him to keep his audience. He can continue praising Donald Trump while also explaining away everything that went wrong by claiming Trump wasn't really in control because he was somehow hypnotized.
And he's blaming his failures on Netanyahu, which is predictable. And well-deserved. I'm not mad about it, and I think Netanyahu's obviously a criminal, and I don't feel sympathy for him after all the innocents he's murdered, but I do feel sympathy for Israel just because there are a lot of nice people in Israel and they don't deserve this. Nobody deserves this. And as I said, I think this is, I want to be honest enough to admit, I think this is a very, an actually threatening, not a fake theatrical threatening, but actually threatening moment for Israel. So I feel bad about that. But all I know is what I saw. Trump was not enthusiastic about doing this. He knew the risks. He thought the risks were real. He told me that. And he did it anyway. And he did it against the advice of his own intelligence agencies and against the wishes and maybe in some mild cases the advice of his own advisors. So why did he do that? At whose behest did he do that? He wasn't enthusiastic about it. He'd said for 10 years he wasn't going to do it. He thought it was a bad idea. He campaigned against regime change wars in the Middle East. A lot. Not just parenthetically, but it was a central position. And it, so far as I could tell, having talked to him about it many, many, many times, I think it was heartfelt.
And I guess another US president dragged into a war in the Middle East that they say they either didn't want to start or move away from. I mean, for me, it's, quite personal what happened in Afghanistan with Joe Biden and the way that the shambolic way that they withdrew. And that, for me, was a defining moment for Joe Biden's presidency. It felt like the beginning of the end of his presidency. Do you think this war is the beginning of the end of Donald Trump?
Of course it's the end. Of course it's the end. And I said this to him in February. I said what he already knew.
But do you think that the lines are being drawn right now? Because we're seeing a lot of the vice president now coming out, defending this deal. He said fundamentally it was worth it. That's what he said yesterday or the day before to Megyn Kelly.
What was worth it? The deal?
The war, the deal, it was worth it.
Well, what are you going to say? It wasn't worth it. All these Americans died. It cost us tens, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars and will cost more going forward. So it's a tough pill to say it wasn't worth it. I mean, this was all pointless. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to say that. No one wants to believe that. So I certainly give him a pass on that. But no, JD, I think the vice president has been very clear about his views. I don't think there's any world in which President JD Vance would have done this. I mean, there's literally no chance of that, I think. But he's the vice president. So one of his jobs is to support the president. And he's done, I think, a very good job of that. It's tough. Who'd want that assignment? But from what I know of JD Vance, and I know JD Vance, was a really decent man. I will just say that. And I know that to be true. His view is, rather than, throwing up your hands and saying, I can't deal with this, I'm out, you violated my principles. His view is, if you're in a position of authority, you do your best to make the best of a bad situation. And he has done that.
From Tucker Carlson's comments, it's pretty clear that he sees J.D. Vance as the future of the movement. He presents Vance as a good and trustworthy person. I don't see it that way at all. Does anyone honestly believe that? I think J.D. Vance is an opportunist who will say or do whatever it takes if it helps him become president. But when it comes to Tucker Carlson's own role in supporting Donald Trump, I have to ask, was Tucker Carlson just being careless, or is there something else going on? On one hand, he claims he never really understood what MAGA was and says the movement was basically whatever Donald Trump wanted it to be. But then he also reminds everyone that he campaigned for Trump, spoke at the Republican National Convention, and fully backed his campaign. If you admit you never understood the movement and believed it changed based on whatever one person said, then why would you throw your full support behind it? That explanation simply doesn't add up. Tucker Carlson could have argued that he believed Donald Trump was the better choice compared to Kamala Harris, or simply the lesser of two bad options. Plenty of people made similar calculations during that election. Kamala Harris was far from my first choice either, but speaking only for myself, I still believe she would have been a better president than Donald Trump, and I think we've seen enough to support that view. To Tucker Carlson's credit, he does admit he was wrong, but you can't seriously claim that you never understood the movement while also saying you completely supported it from the beginning. Those two positions directly contradict each other. If 2024 had been Donald Trump's first campaign and first time running the country, I could understand why some people, even someone like Tucker Carlson, might have been fooled. But that's not what happened. We already watched Donald Trump serve as president from 2016 to 2020, and then we spent another 4 years watching how he behaved after leaving office. By that point, anyone paying attention had plenty of evidence to judge the kind of person he was. Donald Trump has repeatedly shown himself to be a con artist and a habitual liar. Tucker Carlson talks about how our leaders constantly lie, but Donald Trump has built his entire political career around making false claims. So what I still can't figure out is whether Tucker Carlson was simply running a grift the whole time. Did he realize the movement was falling apart and decide it was time to jump on to the next opportunity before everyone else? Or was he genuinely convinced that Donald Trump was a man of peace who wanted to keep America out of wars? Because based on everything we've seen, Donald Trump has often embraced aggressive rhetoric and repeatedly praised the use of force. I'd really like to hear what you think. Do you believe Tucker Carlson is being sincere now, or is this just another attempt to protect his own brand? Was he honestly fooled by Donald Trump, or did he always know exactly what he was doing? Did he truly believe Trump was the anti-war candidate and the president of peace? I've said it before, watching the divisions inside the MAGA movement has been fascinating because they're increasingly turning against each other. At the same time, I also see people pointing to Tucker Carlson and saying, "See, he's finally saying what we've been saying." I don't agree with that conclusion. I still think Tucker Carlson is an opportunist, a grifter, and someone who often drifts into ideas that are difficult to take seriously. When he starts talking about people being hypnotized and suggests that the President of the United States was somehow under hypnosis, it sounds completely unbelievable to me, and it feels like another way of shifting responsibility away from Donald Trump instead of holding him accountable. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.